To buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Welcome to this Stock Box interview with Peter Christie, the CFO of Coro Energy PLC. Hello, Peter. How are you?
Good morning, Mark. I'm well, thanks.
Good. It's good to have you on. We've not spoken to Coro Energy before. I wonder if perhaps we can start with a little bit of an overview about the company. Tell us what you're all about.
So Coro Energy is an energy company with a focus on Southeast Asia, and we've had that focus since 2018. So Southeast Asia, really presents a compelling case for energy investment. It's the countries in the ASEAN bloc, 10 countries have a population of 650 million, and that's set to grow by 100 million in the next 15 years. We've had a doubling of GDP in those countries in the last 10 years, and it's forecast to double again in the next 20 years. And most of those countries have really low energy use per capita. So as they sort of grow wealthier, we expect that energy demand will pick up. Things like air conditioning, appliances, and transport really underpins that energy demand forecast. And there's various estimates out there, but the IEA forecasts a doubling of electricity demand in the next 20 years. So that's really significant, and certainly compared to more mature economies such as Europe and the UK. So that strategy in Southeast Asia has historically been oil and gas led. And that led to our acquisition of a 15% interest in the Duyung PSC in early 2019. But in 2020, so Q3 2020, we broadened that strategy to include cleaner energy and energy storage assets, retaining that regional focus for all the reasons I mentioned, but broadening the strategy to include lower carbon energy assets.
Okay. So you said Southeast Asia as the main operating jurisdiction, and that's mostly because of the growth and the development opportunity that you see there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the growing population and wealth really underpins energy demand growth. So you'll see in more mature economies like Europe and the UK, energy demand growth is flat, if not slightly declining due to energy efficiency measures.
Okay.
So really, this part of the world, Southeast Asia, it really stands out in terms of the opportunity there.
Okay. So let's have a look at the projects that you have then. I believe you have two, is that right? You have one called Ion and one called Mako. Can you perhaps just give us a bit of an overview about each one?
Yeah, so we'll start with the Mako field. And I mentioned earlier, we took a 15% interest in the Duyung PSC, and that contains the Mako gas field. So the PSC is an offshore block located offshore Indonesia in the West Natuna Basin. We came into the license in 2019 with a 15% stake. And the resource base when we farmed in was roughly 280 BCF on a 2C basis, and that's gross. At the back end of 2019, the operator drilled 2 appraisal wells, and that was really to further define that resource base. And we're very pleased to report a doubling of that 2C resource figure in May 2020. So it's roughly sits at 500 BCF now, and 820 BCF on a 3C basis, so plenty of upside there. So the focus now on that particular asset is really the commercialization. So the field is pretty well located. It's close to existing infrastructure. So it's about 100 kilometers from a pipeline called the West Natuna Transportation System. And that's a pipeline with spare capacity that takes gas directly into Singapore, where we can get quite high gas prices. So it's fairly proximate to that pipeline, and it's even closer to another oil and gas platform, the Carisi platform. It's about 15 kilometers from that platform. So there's a number of development concepts under consideration, and that really is the commercialization stage that we're in now, as I mentioned. And a couple of other sort of commercial milestones coming this year, which will lead us towards FID on that project, ideally middle of next year is the target.
Okay. And then what about the Ion? What's that all about?
So Ion was our sort of first clean energy investment. So we announced the sort of broadened strategy in September of last year. And then shortly after, in November, we announced the Ion Ventures investment. So we took a 20% stake in Ion, which is a UK headquartered, but Southeast Asian and UK focused developer of flexible energy assets, primarily energy storage. So think sort of grid scale batteries and off grid, energy storage applications. So Ion has a more mature UK portfolio, and they're looking at ways to monetize that. And then a future focus on Southeast Asia, or an increasing focus on Southeast Asia. They're very much aligned with us in seeing the potential there. All the things I mentioned at the top. So we're very much aligned with them in that. And as part of the deal, as well as our 20% shareholding, we have a right of first refusal to invest directly in their projects in Southeast Asia. So that's exciting. We started to look at that pipeline, and those activities will continue in earnest this year.
And what sort of projects are they involved with then? It's obviously in the low carbon economy and the renewable sector, but is there anything specific that you can share with what they're actually involved in?
Yeah, so a typical project for them would be a battery system, generally connected to the grid. So, in countries like the UK and increasingly in Southeast Asia, where we have this increasing renewables penetration, so more wind, more solar, you're looking at quite intermittent energy generation. The sun doesn't always shine, and the wind doesn't always blow. So energy storage is key to balancing those periods of peak supply and demand. So, the battery systems will draw electricity from the grid at times of peak supply and low prices, and sell the electricity back into the grid at times of lower supply and higher prices. So it's the business model is really about arbitrage in power pricing, and there's various other markets that energy storage assets can participate in. But that flexible generation is really what underpins that investment case.
Okay, so really, what Coro is all about is that low carbon economy and the renewable sector. Of course, you have the Mako project there, which is gas, but as we were sort of discussing before the interview, that's something that you're not necessarily going to move away from, but your focus is going to be in the low carbon economy. And just to touch on some news that you announced recently, the acquisition of Global Energy Partnership Limited, and also a fundraise to raise 3 million. You also mentioned that you feel the company's at an inflection point. There will be an appointment of an executive team. So where's the company now, and where's it heading? And is it right the focus is really going to be down a low carbon economy renewable sector?
So on the gas side, we still see a big future for gas. So coal is still prevalent in Southeast Asia. Countries like Indonesia and the Philippines still obtain a significant amount of their energy from coal. And gas is roughly 50% cleaner burning in terms of CO2 emissions. So there's still a big future for gas there. It's reliable sort of baseload power application. But yeah, as you said, our increasing focus is on the cleaner energy sector, lower carbon energy and related technologies like energy storage. And that led us to the acquisition that we announced last week. So we announced a deal to acquire Global Energy Partnership Limited. And this is a developer of renewable energy projects in Southeast Asia. So they've built a pipeline over the last couple of years with a particular focus on the Philippines and Indonesia and Vietnam. And those are wind and solar opportunities. So we bring that pipeline into Coro and really sort of expand our asset base and our opportunity set for investment in clean energy. And as you mentioned, we also look forward to welcoming new executives. So Mark Hood, who's the CEO and co-founder of GPL, will come in as CEO of Coro. And Michael Carrington will come in as COO. He's the other co-founder of GEPL. So really strengthening our board and management team with clean energy executives and project delivery experts, as we look to build out that pipeline of opportunities. I should add that, the transaction was announced last week alongside the fundraise. It's subject to a general meeting of the company to be held on the 15th of March. So, it's the transaction would close shortly thereafter, assuming we get the nod from shareholders.
Okay. So the company has a lot of experience in the oil and gas industry, but of course, the move of the business towards renewables is what's happening right now. So, how do you take these projects forwards and commercialize them?
So there's some similar characteristics with the oil and gas industry there. The idea really is to take a larger share of the economic interest initially and take the early planning and permitting risk. So there's a lot of value you add to those projects when you move them through the early planning and permitting. So securing grid connection, land usage, technical and environmental feasibility studies, etc. So you can add a lot of value to the projects in those early stages, and then when the projects reach a ready to build stage, and that's obviously when the sort of larger capital commitments come in. There's the option of either farming down the projects, much as you would do in oil and gas, so bringing in a construction equity provider and also taking down some debt for those development costs, or you can sell the projects at that point for a development fee. So you look at those things on a case-by-case basis, but really the business model is to develop to take a portfolio approach and bring those opportunities through the planning and permitting stages, starting with 2 projects in the Philippines.
So I wonder if you can maybe just briefly take us through who is on the board and potentially coming. I notice you've got James Parsons there, who is involved with other companies in this sector. Who is on the board and a bit of their background, and what's the kind of shared goal or shared ambition between the members of Coro Energy board to take the company forward? What are the sort of goals?
That's right. James Parsons is our chairman. James is an experienced company chairman. He sits on a number of different boards as chairman, and certainly in the energy industry and natural resources. We have Fiona McCauley's a non-executive director. She's very experienced energy executive. She sits on a number of boards in the energy sector and wider industries. And she's really the sort of technical guru, if you like, on the board in terms of her experience. And then we've got Marco Fumagalli, who's founded CIP Merchant Capital, which is an investment fund, and Andrew Denon, who's also got a background in fund management and investment management. So that rounds out the sort of existing board. Mm-hmm. And then the incoming executives I mentioned, Mark Hood will come in as CEO and a board seat. And his background is sort of a good blend of oil and gas and clean energy. He started his career or spent time at BP and Cairn Energy, and more recently has the clean energy experience. And then Michael Carrington will come in as COO, like myself, not a board seat, but an executive role. And his background is in energy efficiency in the built environment. So he's got 30 years experience in that industry. And both him and Mark very, very well credentialed in project delivery and management. So that sits nicely alongside the experience of the existing board, with that commercial and technical expertise.
Okay, and just a final question then, Peter. Of course, there are a few things that we're going to be seeing. I think investors are going to be seeing being announced from the company fairly soon. But what are the immediate next steps in the next, let's say, month or two?
So the general meeting is first up. That's on the 15th of March. And certainly for Coro shareholders listening, I'd encourage them to get their proxy votes in. There's information on our website and in the circular. And then you mentioned the fundraise earlier. Certainly once the GM is complete, we will be looking to deploy that capital. So the initial focus will be on the Philippines. So we have the pipeline of opportunities coming in with the GEPL deal, and there's 2 high-graded opportunities we see in the Philippines, 100 megawatt solar and 100 megawatt onshore wind. So the GEPL team have done a lot of the sort of pre-feasibility work on those, built the relationships in country. So really those projects now need some capital to start to move them through the planning and permitting process. So that will be an initial focus in the next sort of 3 to 6 months. We'll continue with to support the operator of the Duyung project. As I said, there's a couple of key commercial milestones on that project on the agenda for this year. One is getting the updated plan of development approved by the Indonesian authorities. And we have a plan of development that's already been approved, but with the increased resource base I mentioned earlier, we need to resubmit that. So that's an ongoing activity. And then, the operator's targeting the signature of a gas sales agreement later this year. So that's another key step as we move towards FID. That's a key step in terms of de-risking the project from a commercial standpoint. And alongside sort of the Do Young and our own project development activities, we've also got the Ion Ventures pipeline that we will be reviewing in more detail.
Mm-hmm.
We started that process, but welcoming in those new execs will be well placed to increase our activity in that area. And we certainly look forward to continuing to work with Ion this year. They've got a number of exciting things on the go.
Okay, well, thank you very much there. That's Peter Christie, the CFO of Coro Energy. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Mark. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.